Dragons, a mythical creature who sprouted tales of fear and also good omen all over the world, from Mesopotamia going through Europe, especially the north, to China and beyond. It fascinates us, its size, its power, its magnificence. We've assigned them magic and powers. And those tales have impregnated our literature with imposing serpentine scale beasts who've come to save or destroy realms. So let's explore these legends, how they've depicted their dragons, and how it has all translated into Romantasy books. But before we continue, help me make more episodes. How? Buy me a coffee to support my small channel. Let's keep the book talk going.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So, dragons. What are they exactly? Well, it depends on which culture is referencing them. In general, though, we can describe them as large creatures resembling a lizard or a snake with a scaled body and a tail. And some have wings and horns.
This is a warning before you fall in.
When we think of tales of dragons, it's most common the one inspiring terror, and therefore why the need for dragon slayers. I can think of the animated TV series Dota: Dragon's Blood. Inspired by the Geek video game, you'll follow a brotherhood of dragon slayers. These knights are spread all over their realm, hunting these dangerous creatures before they burn villages and endanger people. As events progress, we see the protagonist involved in a more complicated mission and transformation with a little spark of attraction in the middle. But what's most relevant here is the fact that dragons are the evil creatures, and there needs to be heroes to drag them down. And this is present in Greek mythology, for instance. In this case, dragons are usually guarding sacred places and artifacts, maybe where their hoarding fame comes from. Heroes are then required to slay them or quietly circumvent them in order to retrieve their treasure and reward. These dragon hoarders can be found mainly in fantasy tales. The Hobbit is one that comes to mind. But we are here for Romantasy, so let's go back to Greece. The Hydra is a famous Greek dragon representation. It's a giant water serpent with 9 poisonous heads. Hercules was tasked with killing it as part of 12 missions meant as punishment. So here you see how we go back to dragon slayers and heroes. Wish I'd found a book with a multi-head dragon, but I guess our fantastical bestiary has other creatures for that. Although, if you know of any, please let me know. But talking about water dragons, in contrast to the more popular earth dragon described in Roman mythology as living underground and in caves, I bring you Styx crimson cranes. In this Romantasy series, especially in the second book, The Dragon's Promise, you'll explore a dragon underwater world. The main character, Shiori, is in possession of a dragon treasure and promises to return it to its truthful owner. Thanks to his dragon shifter friend, and note that he is a dragon who shapeshifts into a human, not the other way around, they'll travel to his realm. Scales, serpentine tail, leonine nose, whiskers, sharp-pointed teeth, horns, and claws. So first interesting aspect is the fact that we're presented with an enchanting magical underwater world of dragons. They use other sea creatures as guardians like sharks, for example. There's a king and a hierarchy, some lineage. You've entered into their palace, but beware, they're not into visitors. Therefore, if you're not a dragon, you might find yourself trapped in the depth of the ocean. Second, they have pearls, a freaking feature of Chinese dragons, probably the most popular dragons we have. In their midst, this pearl is in their mouth or under their chin, exactly as you'll see in some of the dragons and their Priori of the Orange Tree, a book I'll talk more about later. Now, in Elizabeth Lim's story, this pearl is powerful, and more interestingly, you can find them in their chests, as they're actually dragon hearts. I'll be leaving below the links to my reviews on this series, which is a gem of the genre full of culture, magic, challenges, tragedy, and love. Let's time travel now to ancient Mesopotamia to continue with our dragon myths journey. there's a legend of creation that allowed me to introduce you to the prior of the orange tree. I would say this book is in the boundary between fantasy and romantasy, so I believe we can include it here. In Babylon, we find Tiamat, a dragon with a horned head, a scaly snake-like body, powerful forelegs, and an immense tail. Marduk sets to kill this beast, and once he succeeds, he divides Tiamat's body in two, forming with one half the sky and with the other the earth. This reminds me of Samantha Shannon's story for two reasons. The first is because in her world, there's a culture who venerates dragons as gods. They are seen just as the Chinese represent them, as wise and benevolent. They bond with their dragon riders, set to defend their villages and people from evil forces. Starlight, the dragon Najimathun, said,
"Is what birthed us. All dragons of the east came first from the heavens."
Second, these dragons, together with their dark fire breather counterpart, consider an abomination of creation, dictating away the balance and imbalance of the world. Their powers come from opposite elements.
What is below must be balanced by what is above, and in this is the precision of the universe. Fire ascends from the earth, light descends from the sky. Too much of one doth inflame the other, and in this is the extinction of the universe.
In The Priory of the Orange Tree, one of the longest books I've ever read, you'll find multiple characters telling the story from their side of the world until they all eventually find each other to prevent the end of it. On one hand, there's a young queen, Claybourne, whose people believe that by keeping her line alive, ancient dark enemies will stay dormant. Therefore, she needs to secure an heir to avoid complications. Meanwhile, there's a trained warrior disguised as a lady-in-waiting sent to protect her. On the other side of the Dark Sea, you meet Tane, a girl whose dream has always been to become a dragon rider, but circumstances will upend her life dramatically. They live in a world divided by religious beliefs and creeds, so they'll need to face their challenges and find a way to cooperate if they are to survive what's rising from the depths of the abysm. Reading this book will probably feel eternal, but what I highlight is how women are empowered. Moreover, you see these beautiful dragons without wings who carry themselves through water and clouds like the Chinese tales depict them. The creature flew with the grace of a ribbon past the bridge and took to the skies, light and quiet as a paper kite. Then you have a more traditional dragon with bat-like wings that breathes fire. And they talk to humans as the Korean legends describe. So all in all, you have a complex world with queer characters, dragon at its center, whether for good or bad, love affairs, very oriented towards beliefs with concealed truths and unique magic sources. I believe there was more potential to squeeze from the dragons. Use that ancient wisdom and powers to make them more protagonists, you know? But it is what it is. Staying with the Korean legends I just mentioned, they believe that apart from heaven-speaking dragons, they displayed human emotions like gratitude, devotion, and kindness. Can you recognize these two traits in any romantasy book? I do. When I think of a dragon talking and behaving in a more complex way rather than just its animalistic predecessors, I think of the Empyrean series. I don't believe this series needs much introduction, but for the sake of those of you who might have not read it yet, let us dive into Rebecca Yarros's amazing universe. It all starts with Fourth Wing, the first of this 5-book series. There we meet Violet Sorrengail, a fragile girl with a love for books who is forced to enroll in the military academy Best Giant, not in the Scribe Quadrant as her father before her, but as a writer, as the rest of her family has done, mother, brother, and sister. In fact, her mother is the current general director of this institution. The Writers' Quadrant, though, has a fame for being a brutal place. You have to be strong, fierce, and well-prepared if you are to become a dragon rider, all qualities Violet doesn't seem to possess. Nonetheless, she's set to prove the world wrong. I'm not going to die today. But first, she has to use her intellect to outmaneuver her opponents and circumvent her physical obstacles while staying alive against a long list of enemies vying for her death. One of them being Satan Ryerson, handsome, ruthless, and powerful. Thanks to their families, they are natural enemies. There's a tension, though, between them, an inevitable attraction that will burn like a dragon's fire. and soon they'll embark on a perilous mission with a lot of drama, ends, trust and distrust, secrets, and many battles ahead. Here's universe will expand gradually with each book. We start with Violet's challenges at Bas Giant, then in Iron Flame we'll venture outside the Academy's walls, to end in Islands Beyond in the last published installment, Onyx Storm. The dragons in this series are my favorite so far. Why? Because we leave behind the more animal side of them. They are dragons. They'll stay as dragons. But they aren't simply means of transportation or terrorizing beasts used for war efforts. These dragons have their own worlds and ruling structure. It's a mystery really for the humans, as the dragons keep their secrets close to heart. They're strong creatures who communicate mind to mind with their bonded riders. They even pass the magic that can manifest in human signets, like controlling the elements, creating illusions, and even more complex mind powers. They have their own minds and show loyalty, worry, devotion, and even kindness to their bonded. They come in different colors and sizes depending on their race. They have different types of tails, for instance. But in summary, like some Asian myths show, they are revered and magnificent creatures with the power to help humans defeat their enemies like allies more than pets, meaning they are an integral part of the fate of the world. Moreover, you will see another creature in these books, very similar to dragons and usually associated with their mates. It's the wyvern. In contrast with their draconic counterpart, these wyverns have 2 legs, not 4, and they can come in different sizes but even grow bigger than the dragons. Another feature is their poisonous tail, a characteristic depicted in Northern Europe draconic mythology. Jormungandr is the perfect example of this. It's a famous dragon killed by Thor, who later died by its poison. Now, in this Romantasy series, wyverns have another different from the dragons. They can't pass powers to their riders. They are the evil creatures. Just as the fire breathers in the Priory of the Orange Tree, they had considered an abomination and for many just a legend. This is a series you must read.
It all turns into cold blood.
So far, we've talked about water dragons and fire breathers, creatures with 2 and 4 legs, symbols of terror and wisdom, and beasts with human features like talking and expressing emotions. In this evolutionary line, it seems we're missing another step. What happens when these animals adopt even more of the human body? Then we have dragon shifters. Traveling as far as Persia, we encounter the tale of King Faridun. It says he wanted to test the courage of his sons, hence he transformed into a dragon. The youngest, who showed the most courage and wisdom against this ferocious beast, later became the Persian ruler. That's not the only account of legendary shifters, though. In the Volsunga saga, we find another famous dragon, Fafnir. He was once a human who turned into this creature to guard his hoard made up of stolen gold.
Booty!
What about Romantasy then? In Spark the Flames by Ivy Asher, you can explore this idea of dragon shifting at its best. There are many things I find intriguing about it. First, the main character is a female dragon. In other books, male dragons are more predominant. I can think of Empire of Flame and Thorns, for example, where the protagonist is the one who shifts into his dragon form. Thus, kudos to Ivy for giving us the spotlight. Okay, so Spark the Flames. The second thing I highlight is the fact that the characters are dragons first, humans second. What I mean by this is that they are dragons who take a more humanoid form, not the other way around. It might sound as the same, but there's a slight difference. When they are more human-like, they're called drakes, and even their armor in this form is part of their skin. Their dragon persona is like ingrained in every cell of their body, no matter in which shape they are. Of course, when they take the full dragon form, they would have
an armor of scales. Great leathery wings would bud from their back, and formidable fangs drop from their mouth. Their size would dwarf the moon itself.
The way I see it, they are dragons, not mere shifters. They had to take a different form to coexist within their world. But when you classify them in breeds, they would be dragons, not shifters. Does that make sense? I hope so. Going back to Ivy's book, we have Ever, the dragoness I was talking about. She's faced brutal torture. She's witnessed death in the most cruel of forms. She's been hiding from everyone, especially from her kind. However, as you might have guessed it, the dragons find her. Aeson Noctis, the youngest dragon prince, finds her. From there, she'll go through a different kind of imprisonment, a passionate one. There are secrets involved though, many enemies, many truths to uncover. The magic system is very interesting and there's even a very unique use for this magic that I enjoyed. The third aspect about this book and its dragon interpretation is in the bones. The presence of mates through our romantasy is widespread. In here though, there's more to it. I won't go into detail so that you can enjoy the discovery. And of course, the dragons have many different powers. They can manipulate the elements, heal, track, and detect emotions with their high senses, and more. Besides, we see a version of dragons more in accordance with their horde theme. They are possessive and protective of their females, and they also collect personal treasures. Lastly, you'll find weavers in here as well. The physical characteristics are the same as in the Empyrean series we talked about earlier. And like with this series, wyverns don't have those extra gifts of magic dragons enjoy. In all the series mentioned so far, dragons take center stage in the story, whether as human allies or as a race on their own. Now, I would like to include a different book where dragons are a centerpiece, not as characters, but as part of the world the story takes place in. This is a beautiful story where dragons shake the sky as petrified stars and their bonds with their humans have left songs and legends to be spread. I'm talking about When the Moon Hatched. In this tale, the dragons are favorite creatures made by the gods. There are different types, each coming from a different part of their world. In the burn,
where the sun's harsh rays bubbled skin into fleshy welts.
You can find the saber sides,
Big, bulky beasts with black and bronze and rusty scales, with ferocious aptitudes that could not be matched.
If you travel to the Fade, that in between land of marshes and sunsets, you find the molten moths. They are less volatile and their bodies are covered with colorful feathers. And if you go to the south, to the dark and cold territory known as the Shades, you'll see moon plumes, ethereal, cunning, and with such luminescence in their leathery skin,
with their long silky tails and eyes a crush of glitter and ink.
Let us fly to the wings of imagination, to lands of joy and fascination, where every heart finds its own creation in this magical world we share.
In When the Moon Hatched, you'll follow Rev, a woman who kills for a living. Her life is more complex than that, though. She'll undergo some critical trials to find her true self. A tale of power alliances with cruel characters and a forbidden love, if you may. In here, the past mixes with the present, turning into a quest for vengeance. As I said, the dragons are loyal companions and are kneaded into the fiber of the world and its myths and beliefs. There's a lot to unfold in this story, so I'm really looking forward to its sequel. We can't leave this mythical recounting without mentioning the British. They have the famous tale of the red and white dragons battling for the control of Britain, who later became imprisoned in a pit. This legend continues in Arthurian tales, where Merlin told the king about how these dragons were still fighting underground. After being released, the red dragon finally won. You can see these creatures in many flags and thunders throughout British history. In fact, Pendragon in Welsh means chief dragon, so a great significance it's had in its culture. Including Romantasy literature here, you will find dragons not as protagonists, but still, it's curious how this is an Arthurian-inspired story with a fate twist and war beast in the background. I'm talking about Fey Spy Academy series by C.N. Crawford and Alex Rivers, a series I highly recommend. Moreover, there's the legend of St. George, the English patron who defeated a dragon after he had terrorized the city for a long time. According to the tale, to appease this dragon, the people were sacrificing a virgin daily. At some point, it was the turn of the king's daughter, but the brave St. George said no more. In some parts of Spain, there's a similar tale to this one, and to commemorate St. George's Day, there's the tradition of gifting women a rose, and they in turn give the men a book. You can see the appeal for a book lover as myself, right? Just don't give me flowers, give me the books. In summary, we've traveled to Mesopotamia, Greece, Rome, Europe, and Asia to know more about how the dragons came to be. These magnificent creatures that have inspired terror and good fortune have been woven into tales of battles and heroes. And in the literary world, we have incredible stories where these beasts burn, fight, and marvel with their beauty and power. Hope you enjoyed this mythological trip with me. Thanks Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Ride or die, get down in the car. One time, give it all. Bust it open hard. Let me see you drop. Get down in the